Come on, Theo, stay with me, baby. Don't you close your eyes, not now. Rain hammered the asphalt like bullets. Cold. Relentless. The kind that soaks through your bones in seconds. Amara's knees pressed into gravel and broken glass, her uniform already ruined. But she didn't care. Her hands, calloused from years of scrubbing floors nobody else wanted to touch, pushed down on the chest of a 7-year-old boy who wasn't breathing. His lips were turning blue. Breathe, Theo. Please, God, just breathe. She tilted his head back, pinched his tiny nose, and forced air into his lungs. Once. Twice. His small chest rose and fell like a bird with broken wings, but nothing stuck. No cough. No gasp. Just the rain mixing with her tears as she went back to compressions. 30 pumps. 2 breaths. Repeat. But gentler. He was just a baby. She had to be careful not to break his ribs while still pushing hard enough to restart his heart. The balance was impossible. Terrifying. Her arms screamed. Her back burned. But stopping wasn't an option. People walked by. A jogger with headphones. A woman in a Tesla who slowed down, stared, then kept driving. Nobody stopped. Nobody helped. Just another black woman kneeling in the rain over some rich white kid. Easy to ignore. Easy to judge. But Amara wasn't raised to walk away. She was raised in a house where you helped people even when they wouldn't spit on you if you were on fire. Her grandmother used to say, "Baby, you do what's right even when nobody's watching." Especially when nobody's watching. So she kept going. Theo's face was slack. Pale. His little sneakers, light-up ones with cartoon characters, twitched once, then went still. She pressed harder, counted louder, willed him back to life with every ounce of strength she had left. "You don't get to die today, you hear me? Not on my watch." Her voice cracked. Her vision blurred. She'd been walking home from her second job when she saw him stumble out from behind a parked van 2 blocks back. At first, she thought he was lost. Small kid, fancy clothes, no parent in sight. She started to call out, ask if he needed help. But then he collapsed. Just dropped. Right there on the corner of 5th and Main, face first into the concrete like someone cut his strings. And nobody moved. They filmed him. A couple of teenagers laughed nervously. One guy even stepped over him to get to the crosswalk, muttering something about rich kids and their nannies. Amara ran. She didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't wonder if this would cost her the job she desperately needed or if his family would blame her for touching their precious son. She just ran, dropped to her knees, and started fighting for a life that shouldn't have been in danger. Because that's what you do when a child stops breathing. 30 compressions. 2 breaths. Her hands cramped. Her shoulders shook. Rain streamed down her face, mixing with sweat and panic and something deeper. Something that felt like rage. Rage at a world that taught people to record suffering instead of stopping it. Rage at whoever let a 7-year-old wander alone on a city street. But mostly rage at the fact that this boy, this little kid with scraped knees and a dinosaur on his shirt, was dying in front of her, and she was the only one who cared enough to try. Stay with me, Theo. She didn't know his name yet. That would come later. Right now, he was just a child. A heartbeat she refused to let go silent. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. Do what's right, baby. Even when it hurts. It hurt. God, it hurt. But she kept going. A car screeched to a stop nearby. Door slammed. Heavy footsteps splashing through puddles. A man's voice, deep and sharp, cut through the rain. Theo. The anguish in that single word made Amara's stomach drop. What the hell happened? What did you do? Amara didn't look up. Didn't stop. Just kept counting. 27, 28, 29, 30. 2 breaths. Gentle. Careful. Answer me. That's my son. What did you do to my son? Her heart dropped. His son. Of course. This was about to get worse. It always did. But Theo's chest still wasn't rising on its own. His pulse was thread-thin under her fingertips. Stopping now meant watching a 7-year-old die. So she didn't stop. "I'm trying to save him," she said, voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. He collapsed. Wasn't breathing. "I'm doing CPR." The man, tall, expensive suit-drenched, face twisted in absolute terror, stood frozen. For a split second, their eyes met. His were wild with fear. Hers were determined. "Don't just stand there," Amara snapped. "Call 911 if you haven't already." He blinked, fumbled for his phone, started shouting into it, words tumbling over each other. "My son, he's not breathing. Corner of 5th and Main. He's 7 years old. Please hurry." Amara went back to compressions. 30 more. 2 breaths. Her arms were numb. Her lungs burned. But somewhere under her palms, she felt it. A flutter. Faint. Barely there. But real. "Come on, baby," she whispered. "Come back to your daddy. Come back." And then, like a miracle wrapped in terror, Theo's tiny body jerked. If you believe no child should be left helpless while others watch, hit subscribe. Only the heartless scroll past. Theo's chest jerked. A cough. Wet and desperate. Water spilled from his mouth as his body tried to remember how to breathe. Amara quickly turned him on his side, supporting his small head with one hand while the other rubbed his back. "That's it, baby. Get it out. You're okay. You're safe." Another cough. Then a gasp. Air rushed into his lungs, shallow, painful. But there. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and terrified. "Daddy." The word came out as barely a whisper. Grant Ashford dropped to his knees in the rain, foam clattering to the pavement. "I'm here, son. Daddy's here." He reached for Theo, but Amara gently stopped him. "Wait. Let him stabilize. He's still in shock." Grant froze, caught between desperation and trusting this stranger who just breathed life back into his child. His hands hovered in the air, shaking. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights painted the rain-soaked street. Amara kept her hand on Theo's back, feeling each precious breath, monitoring his color. Pink was slowly replacing the deathly gray. "You're doing great, sweetheart," she murmured. "Just keep breathing. Nice and slow." Theo's eyes found hers. Big, brown, confused. "My chest hurts." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. But you're going to be okay." She didn't tell him she'd been pushing on his chest for almost 4 minutes. Didn't tell him his heart had stopped. Didn't tell him she'd been seconds away from losing him. Grant stared at her. Really stared. Like he was seeing her for the first time. "You saved him," he said, voice breaking. "You saved my son." Amara didn't respond. She was watching Theo's breathing, counting each rise and fall of his small chest, making sure it stayed steady. Paramedics rushed over, equipment rattling, questions flying. Amara moved aside, letting them work. They checked vitals, strapped a child-sized oxygen mask over Theo's face, wrapped him in a thermal blanket. Professional. Efficient. Everything she wasn't. One of the paramedics, a woman with kind eyes, touched Amara's shoulder. "You performed CPR?" Amara nodded, still shaking. "How long?" 3, maybe 4 minutes. Until he started breathing again. The paramedic's expression shifted. Respect mixed with something heavier. "You gave him a fighting chance. Most people freeze. You acted." They lifted Theo onto a small stretcher. He started crying, reaching for his father. Grant immediately grabbed his hand, walking alongside the gurney. "It's okay, buddy. Daddy's right here. I'm not leaving you." But before they reached the ambulance, Grant stopped, turned back. His eyes locked on Amara, standing alone in the rain, soaked to the bone, arms wrapped around herself. "Wait," he called out. "Your name. I need your name." "Amara," she said quietly. "Amara Cole. Amara." He said it like he was memorizing it, branding it into his memory. I can't even," his voice broke. "Thank you. Thank you for my son's life." She nodded. What else could she say? They loaded Theo into the ambulance. Grant climbed in, never letting go of his boy's hand. The doors started to close, but Grant stopped them. "Where can I find you?" he shouted over the siren. Amara hesitated. Every instinct screamed to walk away, to disappear, to let this moment fade into just another story. But something in Grant's eyes, raw, desperate gratitude, made her answer. "I work at Riverside Manor, the estate on Lakeview Drive." Grant's face went pale. "You work for the Connors?" "I clean their house," she said simply. Something flickered across Grant's face. Surprise. Discomfort. Recognition. The paramedic interrupted. "Sir, we need to go. Now." The doors slammed shut. The ambulance tore away, sirens screaming into the night. And just like that, Amara was alone again, standing in the rain, shivering, watching the taillights disappear around the corner, carrying a 7-year-old boy who'd been dead in her arms just minutes ago. She looked down at her hands. They were still shaking. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she knew everything had just changed. She just didn't know how much. The emergency room smelled like bleach and fear. Amara sat in the waiting area, still drenched, watching nurses rush past with clipboards and urgent voices. She should have left, should have gone home, changed clothes, warmed up. But something kept her glued to that plastic chair. Maybe it was the look in Theo's eyes when they loaded him into the ambulance. Maybe it was the way Grant's voice broke when he said thank you. Or maybe it was just the fact that she needed to know that little boy would wake up tomorrow. A TV mounted in the corner buzzed with late-night news. She barely paid attention until she heard the anchor's voice shift into that practiced tone of concern. "Breaking tonight. Dramatic rescue on 5th and Main as a local woman saves the life of 7-year-old Theo Ashford, son of real estate mogul Grant Ashford." Amara's stomach dropped. Footage played across the screen. Grainy cell phone video. Her kneeling in the rain, pushing on Theo's chest. The angle made it look heroic, noble. The comments scrolling at the bottom were already calling her an angel. "Oh no," she whispered. This was exactly what she didn't need. Attention. Questions. Her face plastered everywhere. She pulled her hood up and sank lower in the chair. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Fast. Angry. Grant appeared, still in his wet suit, tie loosened, face like thunder. His eyes scanned the waiting room and landed on her. "You." Amara stood slowly. "How is he? Where were you before he collapsed?" Grant's voice was cold, sharp, nothing like the broken gratitude from earlier. "Were you following him?" "What?" "No, A 7-year-old doesn't just wander onto 5th and Main alone. Someone had to let him out of sight. Someone had to." His voice cracked. "You just happened to be there? Convenient, don't you think?" Amara's blood ran cold. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm asking questions any father would ask." A nurse approached, tablet in hand. Older. No-nonsense expression. "Mr. Ashford, we need to discuss Theo's care plan." "In a minute." "Now." The nurse's tone left no room for argument. She glanced at Amara, then back at Grant. "And for the record, the only reason your son is alive right now is because this woman performed textbook CPR for nearly 4 minutes straight." The paramedics confirmed it. Another 30 seconds, and we'd be having a very different conversation. Grant froze. "Theo's stable," the nurse continued. "He's awake, asking for his father. I suggest you go see him instead of interrogating the person who saved his life." She walked away, leaving Grant standing there like he'd been slapped. The silence stretched. Heavy. Uncomfortable. "I wasn't following your son," Amara said quietly. "I was walking home from work. I saw him collapse. I helped because that's what decent people do." Grant's jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to say something. Apologize, maybe. But pride or fear or something darker held him back. Instead, he just turned and walked toward Theo's room. Amara watched him go, then headed for the exit. She was done. She'd done her part. Theo was alive. That was enough. But halfway to the door, her phone buzzed. Dead battery, she thought. But no, someone must have plugged it in at the nurse's station. Notifications flooded the screen. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Her face everywhere. Videos, screenshots, thousands of shares. Black woman saves billionaire son while bystanders film. Hero made perform CPR as rich onlookers do nothing. This woman deserves more than our praise. The comments were overwhelming. Supportive. Angry at Grant. Demanding she be compensated. Calling out the people who filmed instead of helping. Amara's hands shook. This wasn't heroism. This was a target on her back. She powered off her phone and walked out into the rain. Tomorrow, everything would be different. She just didn't know how much. If you believe every worker deserves respect, tap like now. Trolls won't. 3 days later, Grant showed up at her door. Amara opened it halfway, kept the chain lock on. How did you find my address? I need to talk to you. Grant looked exhausted. Older somehow. Please. Your son okay? He's home. Recovering. Asking about the lady who saved him. Grant hesitated. Can I come in? Every fiber in Amara's body screamed no. But something in his face, genuine exhaustion, not entitlement, made her pause. She unhooked the chain. Grant stepped into her small apartment. 1 room. Kitchenette in the corner. Thrift store furniture. Clean but cramped. The contrast to his world couldn't have been sharper. He didn't comment on it. Just stood awkwardly by the door. I came to apologize, he said finally. At the hospital. I was out of line. I was scared and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. Amara crossed her arms. You accused me of hurting your son. I know. I'm sorry. Do you know how that felt? Saving a child's life and then being treated like a criminal. I can't imagine. No, Amara said quietly. You can't. Silence filled the room. Grant looked at the photos on her wall. Family pictures. Her grandmother. A young man in a high school cap and gown, smiling wide. Your brother? Grant asked, nodding toward the photo. Amara's jaw tightened. I'm sorry. When did he? 4 years ago. Outside one of your estates, actually. Her voice was flat. Controlled. The one on Riverside. He was walking home from his shift at the grocery store. Collapsed on the sidewalk right outside your gates. Security cameras caught the whole thing. Grant went pale. What? He had an undiagnosed heart condition. He was 17. Nobody stopped. Your security guards watched from inside the booth, but never came out. Said they thought he was drunk. By the time someone finally called 911, he was gone. The air left the room. I didn't know, Grant whispered. Why would you? He was nobody. Just another black kid on the street. Not worth the liability of helping. Grant's face crumpled. I'm so sorry. The security company never told me. Of course they didn't. They filed it away. Covered it up. Made it disappear. Because that's what people like you do. You build walls and hire people to keep the world out. And when someone dies right outside those walls, you never even know. Tears streamed down Amara's face now. Years of grief and rage finally breaking through. And you know what the worst part is, she continued. I saved your son, anyway. Because when I saw Theo lying there, I didn't think about my brother. I didn't think about your guards who let him die. I just thought about a child who needed help. Because that's the difference between us. Grant stood there, shattered. What can I do? How can I make this right? You can't, Amara said simply. My brother's gone. Nothing brings him back. Then let me at least. Go home to your son, Mr. Ashford. Hold him. Love him. And maybe think about all the sons who don't get saved because people like you build walls instead of bridges. Grant opened his mouth, closed it. No words came. He walked to the door, stopped, looked back one more time. I'm sorry, he said again. For all of it. Then he left. And Amara collapsed onto her couch, crying for the first time in 4 years. If you believe the powerful should answer for their actions, hit subscribe. The cowardly defend silence. 6 months earlier, Amara stood outside the iron gates of the Connor estate, uniform pressed, resume clutched in sweaty hands. The job posting had been simple. Housekeeper needed. Live-in position. Competitive pay. Discretion required. She needed the money. Needed the stability. Her grandmother's medical bills were piling up, and her other job at the diner barely covered rent. So she swallowed her pride and rang the bell. A voice crackled through the intercom. Name: Amara Cole. I'm here for the housekeeping interview. The gates buzzed open. She walked up a driveway longer than her entire block. Marble fountains. Manicured hedges. Cars worth more than she'd earn in a lifetime parked casually in the circular drive. The head housekeeper met her at the door. Stern face. Tight bun. Clipboard. You're late. I'm 5 minutes early. Early is on time. On time is late. Late is unacceptable. Understood. Amara bit her tongue. Yes, ma'am. The interview was brutal. Questions about cleaning products. Schedules. References. The housekeeper walked her through the estate. 18 rooms, 6 bathrooms, a kitchen bigger than Amara's apartment. You will speak only when spoken to. You will not make eye contact with family members unless necessary. You will not use your phone during work hours. You will not enter private quarters without permission. Understood? Yes, ma'am. The Connors value privacy above all else. Gossip will result in immediate termination. Any questions? Amara looked around the cold, pristine mansion. Beautiful but lifeless. Like a museum, not a home. When do I start? Monday. 6 a.m. sharp. The housekeeper handed her a contract. 3 pages of rules. Expectations. Consequences. Amara signed it anyway. Because that's what you do when survival demands compromise. Her room was in the basement. Small. Clean. A bed, a dresser, a lamp. A window that looked out at ground level, where you could watch expensive shoes walk past. She unpacked her few belongings. Set her grandmother's photo on the dresser. Laid out her uniform for the next day. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and let herself feel the weight of it all. This was her life now. Invisible labor in a visible world. Cleaning up after people who'd never see her as fully human. Smiling when spoken to. Silent when ignored. But the pay was good, and her grandmother needed medicine. So she'd do it. She'd scrub their floors and wash their dishes and erase her presence the moment they entered a room. Because that's what survival looked like. That night, lying in her basement room, Amara whispered a prayer her grandmother taught her. Give me strength to do what's right. Give me grace to endure what's wrong. And give me wisdom to know the difference. She didn't know then that prayer would be tested in ways she couldn't imagine. Theo appeared 3 days into her employment. Amara was cleaning the library, dusting bookshelves nobody read, when she felt eyes on her. She turned and found a small boy standing in the doorway. 7 years old, maybe. Big brown eyes. Messy, dark hair. Dinosaur pajamas. He didn't say anything. Just watched. Hi there, Amara said softly. You must be Theo. He nodded. I'm Amara. I work here now. Silence. You like dinosaurs? She pointed to his pajamas. Another nod. Me too. I had a little brother who loved them. Used to know all their names. T-Rex, Triceratops, Velociraptor. Ankylosaurus, Theo said quietly. His first words. Amara smiled. That's a good one. The one with the club tail, right? For protection. Theo stepped into the room. They were herbivores, but they could still fight. Smart. Sometimes the gentle ones are the strongest. Theo considered this. Then, why do you work here? The question caught her off guard. Honest. Direct. The way only children ask. I need the money, Amara said simply. To help take care of my grandmother. Is she sick? Yeah, baby. She is. My mom was sick. Theo's voice went smaller. She died when I was 4. Amara's heart cracked. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Dad says I shouldn't talk about her. Says it makes people uncomfortable. Your dad's wrong. Amara knelt down to his level. You talk about her anytime you want. People we love don't stop mattering just because they're gone. Theo's eyes filled with tears. I don't remember her voice anymore. That's okay. Memory works different ways. Maybe you remember how she made you feel instead. Safe. Loved. That counts too. A door slammed upstairs. Heavy footsteps. A man's voice calling out. Theo. Where are you? Theo's whole body tensed. I have to go. Okay, baby. You come find me anytime you want to talk about dinosaurs, okay? He nodded and ran off. Amara went back to dusting, but her hands shook. That little boy was drowning in a mansion full of everything except what he actually needed. Someone to listen. Someone to see him. She'd met 100 Theos in her life. Kids with every material advantage and no emotional support. Lonely in rooms full of toys. Silent in houses full of noise. It broke her heart every time. Later that night, she heard crying through the walls. Soft. Muffled. Coming from somewhere upstairs. She almost went to check. Almost knocked on doors until she found him. But the housekeeper's words echoed in her head. You will not enter private quarters without permission. So she stayed in her basement room, listening to a 7-year-old cry himself to sleep, and promised herself that if he ever needed her, rules be damned, she'd be there. She just didn't know that promise would cost her everything. 2 weeks in, Theo started showing up during Amara's lunch breaks. She'd sit on the back steps, the only place staff were allowed to eat, with her sandwich and thermos of tea. And like clockwork, Theo would appear. Quiet, hesitant, waiting for permission to exist in her space. You hungry, she'd ask. He'd shake his head, but sit down anyway. They'd eat in comfortable silence. Her with her peanut butter sandwich. Him with whatever the cook had prepared, usually something fancy he barely touched. One afternoon, he broke the silence with a question that hit like a punch. Why do people act like monsters, Amara? She set down her sandwich. Looked at him carefully. What makes you ask that, baby? I heard Dad yelling at someone on the phone. He said terrible things. Called them stupid. Said they were worthless. Theo's voice got smaller. He sounded like a monster. Amara's chest tightened. She could have deflected. Could have said something safe. But this little boy deserved honesty. Your dad's not a monster, Theo. But sometimes people act like ones when they're scared. Scared of what? Lots of things. Losing control. Looking weak. Being wrong. Fear makes people small, and small people sometimes do big, ugly things to feel powerful again. Theo processed this. Are you ever scared? All the time. But you don't act mean. Because being scared doesn't give me permission to hurt people. That's a choice. Amara turned to face him fully. Listen to me. You're going to meet a lot of scared people in your life. Some will try to make you small too. But you don't have to become them. You can be scared and still be kind. You can be hurt and still be gentle. That's real strength. But what if people think I'm weak? Let them. The world's got enough loud, mean people. It needs more quiet, brave ones. Theo leaned against her shoulder. 7 years old and already carrying weight no child should bear. I like talking to you, he whispered. I like talking to you too, sweetheart. The other staff don't talk to me. They just nod and leave. They're probably scared of your dad. Are you? Amara thought about it. About Grant Ashford and his cold mansion and his barked orders. About the way he looked through her like she was furniture. I'm cautious, she said carefully. But I'm not going to let fear stop me from treating you like you matter. Because you do. Theo lifted his head. Do you think I'll be a monster when I grow up? Not if you keep asking questions like that. Monsters don't wonder if they're monsters. They just are. She squeezed his hand. You've got a good heart, Theo. Don't let anybody, not even your dad, convince you to harden it. He nodded. Quiet. Thoughtful. Then he asked, "Can we do this again tomorrow? Every day, if you want." And just like that, a bond formed that nobody could have predicted. One that would change everything. The head housekeeper cornered Amara 3 days later. She was folding laundry in the utility room when the door clicked shut. Mrs. Pemberton stood there, arms crossed, face like stone. "We need to talk." Amara set down the towel. "Yes, ma'am. I've noticed you spending time with the boy. He comes to me during my breaks. I don't seek him out. Doesn't matter. It needs to stop." Amara's jaw tightened. "He's lonely. I'm just talking to him. You are not here to befriend the family. You are here to clean. Nothing more." Mrs. Pemberton stepped closer. "Remember your place, Amara. You're not family. You're not a nanny. You're not special. You're a maid." The words landed like stones. "Theo needs someone to listen to him," Amara said quietly. "What Theo needs is not your concern. Mr. Ashford has been very clear about boundaries. Staff are to remain invisible. That includes emotional attachment. So I'm supposed to ignore a hurting child? You're supposed to do your job." Mrs. Pemberton's voice dropped. "Girls like you come through here all the time, thinking they can fix broken things. Save lonely rich kids. Make themselves indispensable. It never ends well." "I'm not trying to." "Aren't you?" The housekeeper tilted her head. "You think you're the first to notice that boy needs attention? There have been 3 housekeepers before you, all fired for overstepping. Mr. Ashford doesn't tolerate attachment. The moment he thinks you're getting too close to his son, you're gone." Amara's stomach dropped. "So what am I supposed to do? Pretend he doesn't exist?" "Exactly." Mrs. Pemberton straightened. "Be polite. Be professional. Be distant. That's how you keep this job. That's how you survive here." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "I'm not being cruel, Amara. I'm being realistic. This family destroys people who care too much. Don't let them destroy you." The door closed. Amara stood alone in the laundry room, surrounded by expensive sheets and designer towels, and felt the walls closing in. She could follow the rules, keep her distance, stay invisible, or she could keep showing up for a 7-year-old who needed anyone, to see him. The choice should have been simple, but survival rarely is. It happened on a Tuesday. Amara was vacuuming the upstairs hallway when she heard it, sobbing, coming from Theo's room. She hesitated. Mrs. Pemberton's warning echoed in her head. "Remember your place." But the crying got louder, desperate. She knocked softly. "Theo? You okay, baby?" No answer. Just more crying. She opened the door. Theo sat on his bed, knees pulled to his chest, tears streaming down his face. A broken model airplane lay scattered across the floor. Hey, what happened?" Amara rushed over, knelt beside him. "I ruined it," Theo choked out. "Dad gave it to me. Said it was his when he was my age. And I broke it. Accidents happen, sweetheart. He's gonna be so mad." Theo's whole body shook. He's already mad all the time. Now he'll hate me. He won't hate you. You're his son. You don't know him. He doesn't. Theo's voice cracked. "He doesn't love me. Not really. Mom did, but she's gone and now nobody." Amara pulled him into her arms. "Listen to me. You are worth loving. You hear me? Not because of what you do or don't break. Just because you exist." Theo clung to her like she was the only solid thing in a collapsing world. They stayed like that, her holding him finally letting years of loneliness pour out. Neither of them heard the door open. What the hell is going on here? Amara's blood went cold. She looked up. Grant Ashford stood in the doorway, face carved from ice. "Mr. Ashford, I can explain. Step away from my son. Now." Amara slowly released Theo, stood up. Theo grabbed for her hand, but she gently pulled away. He was upset. "I was just You were just overstepping. Grant's voice was deadly calm. Theo, go to the playroom. But Dad. Now. Theo scrambled off the bed, shot Amara one terrified look, and ran. Silence filled the room. Grant closed the door. Slowly. I don't know what you think you're doing, he said quietly. But it ends today. He was crying. I wasn't going to ignore that. That's exactly what you're paid to do. Clean. Cook. Stay invisible. Not play therapist to my son. With all due respect, your son needs someone to talk to. And with all due respect, you're a housekeeper, not a psychologist. Grant stepped closer. You've been here 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and you think you know what my son needs better than I do. I think he needs someone who listens. The air crackled. Let me make something very clear, Grant said, voice dropping to something dangerous. Theo is my responsibility, not yours. You will keep your distance. You will do your job. And if I catch you crossing that line again, you're fired. Understood? Amara met his eyes. Steady. Unflinching. Understood, sir. Good. Now get back to work. She left. Hands shaking. Heart racing. But she didn't regret it. Not for a second. Amara kept her distance. For exactly 2 days. Then Theo showed up at her door at midnight. She woke to soft knocking. Opened it to find him standing there in pajamas, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Tears on his face. I had a nightmare, he whispered. Every rule screamed at her to send him back. Every warning from Mrs. Pemberton. Every threat from Grant. But she looked at this terrified 7-year-old and made a choice. Come here, baby. She led him into her small basement room. Sat him on the bed. Made him hot chocolate from the tiny kettle she kept hidden. You want to talk about it? Theo shook his head. Then nodded. Then started crying again. I dreamed Mom was calling for me, but I couldn't find her. I kept running through the house, but every room was empty. And then I woke up and she was still gone. Amara's heart shattered. She sat beside him, pulled him close. Your mom loved you so much, Theo. I know she did. And I know she'd be so proud of the brave, kind boy you're becoming. How do you know? Because I see you. I see how gentle you are with the garden cat. How you say thank you to the cook even when nobody's watching. How you ask hard questions instead of pretending everything's fine. That's your mom's love still living in you. Theo leaned against her. I wish you were my mom. The words hung in the air. Dangerous. Beautiful. Heartbreaking. I can't be your mom, sweetheart. But I can be someone who cares. Someone who sees you. Someone who's here when you need them. Promise. I promise. They sat together until his breathing slowed. Until sleep found him again. Then Amara carried him back upstairs, tucked him into bed, and slipped out like a ghost. Mrs. Pemberton was waiting in the hallway. Their eyes met. The housekeeper saw everything. Knew everything. But instead of reporting it, she just shook her head slowly and walked away. Some rules, Amara realized, were worth breaking. Some children were worth the risk. And some fights were worth losing your job over. She just hoped, prayed, it wouldn't come to that. But deep down, she knew it would. Theo wasn't supposed to hear it. He'd been looking for his father. Wanted to show him the drawing he'd made. A picture of a dinosaur protecting a smaller one. He thought maybe, just maybe, Dad would smile. Say something nice. Act like he cared. He found Grant in his office, door half open, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what the media says, Patricia. She's just a maid. A housekeeper. Nothing more. Theo froze in the hallway. Yes, I'm grateful she helped Theo. But that doesn't make her family. It doesn't give her special privileges. Grant's voice was cold. Clinical. She's getting too comfortable. Too attached. I need her to remember her place before this becomes a problem. Theo's drawing slipped from his hands. Just a maid. The woman who held him when he cried. Who listened to his nightmares. Who made him feel less alone in this massive, empty house. Just a maid. Theo needs structure, not emotional attachment to staff. Grant continued. These people come and go. I won't have him bonding with someone who'll leave in 6 months when she finds a better opportunity. These people. Theo backed away slowly. Each word felt like a slap. His chest got tight. His eyes burned. He turned and ran. Down the hallway. Through the kitchen. Past the shock cook. Out the back door into the afternoon air. Rain had started. Light at first, then heavier. The sky had been threatening storms all day, dark clouds rolling in like smoke. Theo didn't care. He kept running. Away from the house. Away from his father's voice. Away from the truth that he was just another thing to manage. Another responsibility. Another burden. His mother wouldn't have called Amara just a maid. His mother would have invited her to sit at the table. Would have asked about her family. Would have seen her as human. But his mother was gone. And his father was a stranger in an expensive suit. Theo's vision blurred. Rain or tears, he couldn't tell anymore. His chest hurt. Breathing felt hard. Wrong. He stumbled, caught himself against a tree at the edge of the driveway. Then the pain hit. Sharp. Sudden. Like something inside him broke. He gasped, clutched his chest, tried to call out. But his voice wouldn't work. His legs buckled. The last thing Theo saw before the world went dark was the rain-soaked driveway and the distant lights of the house, where nobody would notice he was gone. Inside, Amara was finishing the evening dishes when something made her look up. A feeling. Instinct. The same one she'd had the night her brother died. Something's wrong. She dried her hands, walked to the window. Rain pounded against the glass. Lightning split the sky. And then she saw him. Small. Crumpled. Lying face down at the edge of the driveway. Oh God. Theo. She didn't grab a coat. Didn't tell anyone. Just ran. Out the door, through the rain, across the lawn. Her shoes slipped on wet grass. Her uniform soaked through instantly. Theo. Baby, can you hear me? She dropped to her knees beside him, turned him over. His face was gray. Lips blue. Eyes closed. Not again. Please, God, not again. She pressed her fingers to his neck. Pulse was there, but wrong. Weak. Irregular. Stay with me, Theo, she whispered, already positioning her hands on his small chest. Don't you close your eyes, not now. Thunder crashed overhead. Rain came down harder. But Amara didn't feel it. All she felt were the compressions. 30 of them. Steady. Controlled. 2 breaths. Again. Come on, baby. Stay with me. Behind her, the house lights blazed. Someone must have noticed she'd run out. Must have looked for Theo. But she couldn't think about that now. All that mattered was the boy beneath her hands. The boy his father called a responsibility. The boy she called worth saving. Amara lost count of the compressions. 30. 2 breaths. 30 more. 2 breaths. Rain hammered her back. Lightning turned the world white, then black, then white again. Thunder shook the ground beneath her knees. But she didn't stop. Breathe, Theo. Please, baby, breathe. Her arms burned. Her lungs screamed. Water streamed into her eyes, blurring everything. But she kept going, because stopping meant losing him. And she'd already lost one boy to a world that didn't care. She wouldn't lose another. Voices shouted behind her. Footsteps splashing through puddles. Someone grabbed her shoulder. What happened? Grant's voice, raw with panic. He collapsed. Not breathing. Amara didn't look up. 30 compressions. Call 911. I already did there. Then get me a towel. Something to keep him warm. Grant ran. Amara went back to CPR. Her hands cramped. Her back spasmed. But Theo's chest kept rising and falling under her palms. Artificial breath she was forcing into him. Mrs. Pemberton appeared with blankets. The cook with towels. The groundskeeper with an umbrella, trying uselessly to shield them from the storm. But Amara barely registered any of it. All she heard was her grandmother's voice. Do what's right, baby. Even when it hurts. It hurt. God, it hurt. Then a cough. Weak. Wet. But there. Theo's body jerked. Amara quickly turned him on his side as water spilled from his mouth. He gasped, choked, gasped again. That's it, sweetheart. Get it out. You're okay. His eyes fluttered open. Confused. Terrified. Searching. Amara. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Can't breathe. I know. Help's coming. Just stay with me. Sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights flickered through the rain. The ambulance tore up the driveway, tires spraying water. Paramedics rushed over. Same woman from before. She recognized Amara immediately. You again. Same kid, Amara said, voice breaking. Heart condition, I think. Collapsed, wasn't breathing. I did CPR for maybe 3 minutes before he came back. The paramedics' eyes widened. You saved him twice. Amara didn't answer. She was watching them work. Oxygen mask. For line. Heart monitor beeping erratic rhythms. Grant tried to climb into the ambulance, but the paramedic stopped him. You can follow in your car. We need space to work. That's my son. Sir, if you want him to live, let us do our job. The doors slammed. The ambulance screamed away into the storm. Grant stood there, soaked, shaking, watching his son disappear. Then he turned to Amara. She was still on her knees in the driveway, soaked, shivering, staring at her hands. You saved him, Grant whispered. Again. Amara looked up. Rain streamed down her face. Or maybe tears. Hard to tell. He heard you, she said quietly. On the phone. Calling me just a maid. That's why he ran. Grant's face crumbled. He was coming to show you a drawing. Wanted you to be proud of him. Instead, he heard you reduce the one person who makes him feel seen to just a maid. Her voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. He ran because he realized even his father's kindness has limits. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. Amara stood slowly, every muscle screaming. You meant every word. And now your son almost died, because he'd rather risk a storm than live in a house where love is conditional. Grant opened his mouth, closed it. No defense came. Behind them, the groundskeeper held up his phone. Screen glowing in the darkness. Sir, you need to see this. He turned the phone around. Security footage. Crystal clear. Amara running through the storm, dropping beside Theo, performing CPR while lightning split the sky around her. The video was already online, already going viral, already making Amara Cole a name the world would never forget, and Grant Ashford a father the world would never forgive. By morning, the video had 20 million views. Amara woke in the hospital waiting room. She'd refused to leave until she knew Theo was stable, to her phone exploding with notifications, tags, shares, comments flooding in faster than she could read them. This woman saved the same child twice. She deserves everything. While his billionaire father was on the phone, she was in the rain fighting for his son's life. Grant Ashford should be ashamed. This woman has more humanity in her pinky than he has in his entire soul. Give her the estate. Give her everything. She earned it. News outlets picked it up. CNN, Fox, NBC, all running the same footage. Amara in the rain. Compressions. Lightning. A black woman saving a white child while the world watched. The narrative wrote itself. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ms. Cole? This is Tracy Reynolds from Good Morning America. We'd love to have you on the show. She hung up. It rang again. Different number. Amara Cole? We're prepared to offer you $50,000 for an exclusive. She hung up again. The hospital TV in the corner was showing the footage on repeat. A panel of talking heads debating privilege, race, class, heroism. Dissecting her life like she wasn't a person, just a symbol. The optics are clear, one commentator said. A black domestic worker literally breathing life into the child of a man who called her just a maid hours earlier. This is America in a single frame. Amara turned away. She didn't want to be a symbol, didn't want cameras, didn't want her trauma turned into content. She just wanted Theo to be okay. A doctor appeared. Ms. Cole. She stood quickly. Is he stable? Awake? Asking for you, actually. Relief flooded through her. Can I see him? Family only, I'm afraid. But Mr. Ashford said to tell you. The doctor paused, checked his notes. He said to tell you thank you, and that he'd like to speak with you when you're ready. Amara nodded. Tell Theo I'll see him soon. Tell him I'm not going anywhere. The doctor smiled. I will. After he left, Amara sat back down, pulled out her phone, scrolled through the comments. Most were supportive, calling her a hero, demanding she be compensated, starting fundraisers without her permission. But others were darker. She probably pushed him for attention. Gold digger trying to get close to the family. Why was she even outside? Suspicious. The hate was predictable, expected. She'd lived long enough to know that black excellence always came with asterisks. But the love was overwhelming. Thousands of people sharing their own stories, thanking her, calling her brave. One comment stopped her cold. My son has the same heart condition. If he ever collapsed, I'd pray someone like you was there. Thank you for showing him people still care. Amara closed her eyes, breathed deep. This was bigger than her now. Bigger than Theo. Bigger than Grant Ashford and his guilt. This was about every invisible person who held the world together while being treated like furniture. Every worker dismissed as just a something. Every human reduced to their function. She couldn't control the narrative, couldn't stop the cameras or the commentary, but she could control her next move. And that move started with a conversation. If you believe every worker deserves dignity, comment, I stand for justice. Because cruelty thrives on silence. Grant came to her that evening. Not in his office. Not surrounded by lawyers. Just him, standing outside the small waiting room where Amara sat alone. Can we talk? His voice was hoarse, raw. Amara looked up. He'd aged 10 years in 2 days. Eyes sunken. Suit wrinkled. The armor cracked. How's Theo? Stable. They're keeping him for observation. Running more tests. Grant sat down 2 chairs away. Respectful distance. He's been asking for you. What did you tell him? That you're the reason he's alive. Again. Grant's hands trembled. The doctors said if you'd been 30 seconds slower, the brain damage would have been irreversible. If you'd been a minute slower. He couldn't finish. Silence stretched between them. I owe you an apology, Grant said finally. A real one. Not the corporate version I gave you at the hospital last time. A real, human apology for treating you like you were disposable. Amara said nothing. You were right. About everything. About Theo. About me. About the walls I've built. He looked at his hands. After my wife died, I convinced myself that distance was protection. That if I didn't let people in, if I didn't let Theo get attached, then losing them wouldn't destroy us again. So you destroyed him slowly, instead. Grant flinched, but didn't argue. Yes. And me? What was I? Just collateral damage in your grief management plan. You were supposed to be temporary. Replaceable. Just another maid, Amara finished. I know. I heard the speech. I'm sorry. Grant's voice broke. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For your brother. For treating you like you were invisible. For making my son feel so alone he'd rather die in a storm than live in my house. Amara finally looked at him. Really looked. Saw past the wealth and the walls to the terrified father underneath. Sorry doesn't bring my brother back, she said quietly. And it doesn't undo the trauma you've caused Theo. But it's a start. What can I do? How do I make this right? Amara thought about it. About her brother. About Theo. about every invisible person grinding themselves down just to survive. You want to make it right? Here's how. She leaned forward. First, you set up a foundation in my brother's name. Fund CPR training in underserved communities. Make sure what happened to him never happens to another kid because security guards couldn't be bothered. Grant nodded. Done. What else? Second, you go to therapy. Real therapy. Process your grief so you stop weaponizing it against your son. Okay. Third, you let Theo be a kid. No more emotional walls. No more dismissing people who care about him. He needs connection, not protection. And fourth, Grant asked. Amara stood, looked down at the man who'd called her just a maid. Fourth, you remember that every person who works for you is somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody worth seeing. Her voice was steady, strong. You treat them like humans, not furniture. And if you can't do that, you have no business employing anyone. Grant stood too, extended his hand. I'll do all of it, I promise. And I'll never forget what you've done for my son, for my family. Amara looked at his hand, considered it, then shook it. Not as a maid to an employer, but as one human to another. Don't make promises to me, she said. Make them to Theo. He's the one who deserves your best. I will. And for the first time, Amara believed him. The hospital garden smelled like cut grass and antiseptic. It was the first truly sunny day after the storm, and the world seemed washed clean. Watching the boy throwing a bright red ball against a brick wall was the true reward. He was laughing, a sound that had been missing from the world until it returned. The man was nearby, sitting on a bench beneath a huge oak tree. He didn't approach. He didn't demand attention. He just watched, a shattered mirror of the arrogant man he'd once been. He was reviewing documents, the first steps of setting up the Kai Cole initiative. He was keeping his word, showing that he truly understood the price of his prior indifference. Leaning back, feeling the sun on her face, she thought about the viral videos and the constant pressure. They called her a hero for doing CPR. But the real act of courage, she realized, wasn't breathing life into a small body. That was pure instinct. The genuine courage was standing in the powerful man's office, feeling the ghost of her brother behind her, and demanding justice when it would have been easier and safer to simply take the settlement check and walk away. It took courage to stay. It took courage to speak truth to power. The contrast between this sunny, peaceful day and the terrible cold rage of 4 years ago was stunning. Back then, life was gray, defined by loss and the fight for rent money. Now it was filled with the urgent, demanding work of change. She was moving from cleaning up messes to preventing them. The boy chased his ball, and it rolled right to her feet. He stopped, eyes wide, waiting. Go get it, champ. He did, grinning. That little moment, the trust in his eyes, solidified everything. She wasn't an employee anymore. She was a catalyst. She was the reason this child got a second chance at a father, and the reason thousands of other children would get a chance at a first responder. The storm had broken more than just the man's arrogance. It had broken the walls she herself had built around her grief. Her brother didn't need vengeance. He needed a legacy. And now she had the resources to build one. She looked at the man who caught her eye and gave a small, weary nod of thanks. There would be legal battles. There would be powerful people trying to stop her. But watching the boy play, she knew she could handle anything. She had nothing left to fear because she had already faced down the absolute worst kind of terror and won. If you stand for change over pride, hit subscribe, because arrogance ruins more lives than poverty ever did. The press conference was absolute chaos. The man's public relations team had secured the city's largest ballroom, but the media turnout was unprecedented. Flashbulbs popped like fireworks. The air crackled with a demanding, aggressive curiosity. This was the moment of truth. Standing backstage, wearing a simple, tailored black dress, she felt the same cold fear she'd felt in the rain. But this time it wasn't life or death. It was legacy or failure. The man stepped up to the podium. He didn't sound like the typical self-important figure. He spoke quietly, humbly, his voice catching when he mentioned his son and the woman who saved him. He announced the creation of the Kai-Cole First Responder Accessibility Initiative, not just a charity, but a well-funded mandate to tear down the very walls his real estate had built. Then he introduced her. The director of this initiative is the only person qualified to run it. Not a politician, not a wealthy donor. The person who understands the true cost of indifference. She walked onto the stage. The silence was immediate and profound. Every eye, every lens was fixed on her. This isn't about me. This is about my brother, Kai. He was 17 when he collapsed. He died because the world decided he was invisible. This foundation is a commitment to the humanity of every person, whether they are cleaning the floors or signing the contracts. We are building systems that see people, not titles. Her words were simple, clear, and cut straight through the noise. The cameras flashed, but the message stuck. As she finished, a small figure rushed onto the stage. The boy. He ran straight to her and hugged her legs. He was shy, overwhelmed by the crowd, but determined. I made you something. He pulled a small leather bracelet from his pocket and fumbled with the clasp until she helped him put it on her wrist. In the center, a tiny, simple metal plate was engraved with a single word. So you always remember. She looked at the plate. Family. Tears finally welled in her eyes. The bracelet wasn't a thank you. It wasn't payment. It was connection. A promise of belonging she had fought for, not for herself, but for the invisible 7-year-old who needed it most. She hadn't saved the boy just once or twice. She had saved him forever. And in doing so, she had finally saved herself. Life at the old estate was gone, but the man had bought a smaller, warmer home. One without marble fountains or a head housekeeper. It was a space for healing, not hiding. The boy, still recovering, was often with her, drawn to the quiet stability she offered. One afternoon, sitting in the sunlit new living room, the boy looked up from his comic book, his brow furrowed. Dad still calls the delivery people the help. Is that bad? It's not bad, sweetheart, she said, choosing her words carefully. It's small. Calling someone the help means you only see their job, not their whole story. We don't call the doctor the stabber just because they use needles, right? They're people who help. They have names. That's called respect. He considered this. He was learning empathy not through lectures, but through observation. Another time, he complained about a boy at school. He won't let me play because my plane was better than his. That's called pride, she told him. And pride always leads to loneliness. Courage isn't about having the best toy. It's about being the first person to share what you have, even if it means someone else wins. She taught him that fairness wasn't always equal. Fairness meant giving the most support to the person who needed it most. She taught him that his family's wealth didn't make him smarter or better. It only made him more responsible for the world outside his own windows. The world's got plenty of fences, Theo, she said one evening, tucking him into bed. Your job isn't to build new ones. It's to look for the people standing outside the gate and throw it open wide. She was teaching him how to grow up kind in a world that rewarded cruelty. She was teaching him how to be seen without being arrogant, and how to be powerful without being dismissive. The greatest lesson she could give him wasn't found in a book, but in the truth of their shared history. The man's change wasn't instant, but it was absolute. His journey began in therapy, digging into the fear that had frozen him for years, realizing he had exchanged love for control. He learned that humility was a strength, not a weakness, and that admitting mistakes was the only path to genuine peace. His meetings were different now. He was still sharp, still driven, but the ice was gone. He used names. He listened. When he spoke to his new staff, he didn't give orders. He gave context and thanked them for their effort. This new, quieter Grant was, paradoxically, far more powerful than the old, demanding one. He called her one evening, not about the foundation, but about a personal failure. "I just spent 10 minutes talking to the man who delivers our groceries," he confessed. "I asked him about his kids. He's putting one through college. I'd forgotten how to have a conversation that wasn't about money or leverage. I'm just starting to realize how many people I walked past without ever seeing." "It's hard work, isn't it?" she replied. "Seeing people. It's harder than running an empire." "It requires empathy," he admitted. He had finally understood that the distance he created with his wealth wasn't just physical. It was emotional and moral. The foundation flourished under her direction, becoming a national movement. Grant, now the quiet champion, used his influence not to boast, but to clear obstacles. He was dedicated to his debt, driven by the memory of the cold, dead street outside his walls and the tiny, freezing figure of his son. He never called her Miss Cole or Amara. He called her Director Cole. It was a title of professional respect that meant more than any word he could speak. He saw her now, not as a symbol of his guilt, but as the architect of his redemption. The man who had once tried to pay her to disappear was now paying her to ensure no one else ever felt invisible again. She stood outside the high iron gates of the massive estate one last time. It was a clear evening, and the sky was bleeding orange and violet. The mansion felt different now, no longer a tomb of secrecy, but just an empty, expensive house waiting for a new owner. The man had arranged for her to return to retrieve the last of her belongings from the basement room. The boy was there, too, running across the massive lawn that she used to meticulously clean. He wasn't running from anything. He was running to the sunset, completely free. His laughter, bright and unrestrained, bounced off the polished marble walls. The man walked up to her, holding a plain cardboard box, her few possessions. His posture was still rigid, but the look in his eyes was softer, marked by permanent regret. "They're closing the sale tomorrow," he said. "The funds are already allocated to the initiative." "Good," she replied. She wasn't looking at the money. She was looking at the vast, cold house. It was beautiful, but she finally saw it for what it truly was, a monument to loneliness. "I still don't understand how you did it," the man confessed. "You came here for money, but you took something far more valuable than cash." "I took accountability," she said. "I took a house full of walls and showed you they were all built on fear. And you were brave enough to let them fall." She thought about the basement room, her first prison, where she swore she'd remain invisible. Now, she was the most visible person in the entire organization. She realized that her brother's death hadn't destroyed her. It had armed her. Her grief became her budget. Her invisibility became her leverage. A few weeks earlier, she would have felt rage standing here. But now, all she felt was a deep, quiet power. She had come to scrub the floors of his house. She ended up scrubbing the stain from his soul. The boy ran up and grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the setting sun. "Come on, Amara. Let's watch it go down." She followed him, leaving the gates behind. The true victory wasn't the millions in the foundation. It was that she could walk away from this symbol of power with her dignity intact, holding the hand of the child she saved, looking forward to a world she was actively helping to build. The new headquarters of the initiative was intentionally modest. No mahogany, no marble. Just clean lines and bright, functional spaces in a part of the city that needed job growth. She sat at a plain wooden desk, reviewing a map of the city dotted with hundreds of new emergency beacons, the physical manifestation of her brother's legacy. She was no longer the maid who cleaned up messes. She was the architect who prevented them. She oversaw a diverse team of engineers, security experts, and community organizers, people who understood that technology was useless without empathy. The first major report came in 3 months after launch. A life saved by the Open Gates Protocol. An elderly woman, living in a community Grant had built, collapsed from stroke. The ambulance, usually delayed by a minute navigating the security system, had instant access. The difference in time saved the woman from severe permanent damage. Reading the report, she didn't feel triumph. She felt a profound sense of moral closure. This was the antithesis of the night Kai died. This was life winning over indifference. She touched the leather bracelet on her wrist, the one the boy gave her, engraved with family. It was a reminder that the most important connections are the ones forged in crisis, not convenience. She still saw the boy frequently, not because she had to, but because they belonged to each other now, bound by trauma and trust. Her own transformation was complete. She had come to the city desperate and overlooked, prepared to sacrifice her sense of self for her grandmother's needs. She left that role not because she got fired, but because she became too powerful to ignore. The system had tried to use her, but she had used the system right back, not for greed, but for goodness. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. The gates were coming down, both the literal iron ones and the invisible ones in people's hearts. She had finished her labor. She had brought justice to her brother's memory and purpose to her own life. The chapter of the invisible Maid was closed, replaced by the relentless catalyst for change. Her grandmother, now fully recovered, often visited the initiative office, watching her granddaughter direct and lead. She didn't say much, but her pride was a palpable, quiet force. The world had asked her to be silent. She chose to be a siren. Comment: love changes everything. If you believe kindness can break any wall,